you guys are good to go.
Did he say good to go?
Yeah.
I think he said yes.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise if you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Sorry. Oath books and such. Supervisor Moore.
Present.
Councilwoman McNamara. Present. Councilman Iacilli.
Present.
Councilman Pell.
Here.
Martell.
Present.
All right, thank you. I move to approve the minutes from the regular town board meeting of November 12th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the communications?
Certainly. We have received the following communications in the office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the New York State Department of Public Service regarding 2025-26 winter preparedness workshops on November 8th and January 8th. Town of East Hampton, public hearing notice for December 18th. Village of Sag Harbor, public hearing notice. Village of Southampton, Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation hearing on November 24th for 1 Boatman's Lane, Village of Southampton. The annual financial disclosure statement filing by the listed individual. And Town Fire Districts, the 2026 adopted budgets from Bridgehampton, East Quogue, Eastport, Flanders, Hampton Bays, North Sea, Riverhead, Southampton, and West Hampton Beach. We have received the following correspondence, emails, and letters regarding the following: ICE activity in the community, notification of optimum program changes, Planning Board matter of 94 Dune Road LLC, change in non-conforming use, proposed change of zone application for Mariner Housing LLC, Southampton. We opened the following bid and request for proposals on November 12th, a bid for Bay Drive Water Quality Improvements Phase 2, and a bid for Poxabog Golf Center building renovations. November 13th, we opened a RFP for food and beverage service at Poxabog Golf Center. The following report was filed from the town comptroller for the monthly financials for September and October 2025. And from the receiver of taxes, the 2025-2026 tax roll transfer reports for unpaid alarm billing, Hampton Bays water arrears, Suffolk County Water Authority arrears, Bridgehampton coastal erosion tax levies, North Sea Beach Colony ECD tax levies, Sagaponack coastal erosion tax levies. And that concludes communications for this meeting's agenda.
Thank you. And I do have 2 walk-ons that I'd like to add to the agenda. The first is Town Board Resolution ID number 51621, the 2025 Standard Workday and Reporting Resolution for elected and appointed officials. And the second is Town Board Resolution ID number 51647, which is the warrant number 22. I move to add those to the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Got a special event tonight, so I'd like to move to take a resolution out of order. Resolution number 2025-1436 on page 47.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Chief, would you like to introduce?
Yes. Good evening, Supervisor Moore and town board members. Today, I proudly recommend that you vote to swear in Alonzo Redondo as our newest town police officer, full-time police officer. As you know, we take a lot of time and put in a lot of effort to find the finest people we can find to support our police department. Alonzo is one of those people. Alonzo has been a police officer for a few years now. He is going to go back to the Suffolk County Police Academy and join our force. He said to us during his interview process that he cannot wait to start working hard for us. And we cannot wait for him to come out of the police academy and start working hard for us. Today's the beginning of your journey, Alonzo, with us, and you're joining an elite group of police officers. I know you know other police officers, you've had experience in other places, but this is the finest police department in the state of New York. I say that with confidence, and I say that knowing that that is because the men and women who wear the Southampton Town Police patch care about the community they serve. We're going to provide you with the training that you need and the resources that you need to succeed. And we look forward to you graduating the police academy and coming out and starting your training with us and serve with distinction in this community. Sonia and Miguel, I want to tell you that you're part of our police family as well now. I don't know how that worked in the last two police departments that Alonzo worked for, but I can tell you that you are now part of our family. And welcome at our police headquarters in Hampton Bays anytime. Welcome in this building at Town Hall anytime. Please come, see the facilities, see where your son's going to be working, and we're happy to have you. From me and the town board, I can tell you that we're going to provide your son with the best training we can possibly give him, and we're going to try our best to give him the best equipment and everything he needs to do this difficult job. So he comes home safe and sound to the best of our ability every day. With that, I ask the town board if you would please vote and pass this resolution to hire our newest and 110th police officer, our largest police department in the history of the Southampton Town Police.
Glad to do it, so let me read Town Board Resolution 2025-1436, co-sponsored by Council Members McNamara and Pell.
Madam Clerk, may I co-sponsor?
Me as well.
Very good. To appoint police officer, Spanish-speaking, Alonso Redondo, to the academy and beyond.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This time we won't let you leave without signing it.
Yeah. Okay, definitely.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Alonzo Redondo,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Southampton Town Code,
and Southampton Town Code,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of police officer, Spanish speaking,
of police officer Spanish speaking
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Needs to sign the book, right?
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
I'll have you come back for a picture after you sign the book.
Come right back.
Make it official.
Make it official. Okay,
Sneak around here. Stand in the middle.
you.
Ah, you don't want to chase me around.
No, I don't.
Excuse me?
Wait for Chief.
There's another spot, too.
Is this you too? I don't know.
He gets mad if you don't get his picture taken.
Oh, you could take it without me if you want.
No.
No, wait for Chief.
On the end here.
Do Eric first and then Tijay.
Sneak in here.
All right, I did mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you again. Thank you so much. Yeah, please. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, please, family.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you so much again.
Come on up.
You're all gonna take a picture? All right.
Yeah, they're gonna take us. Thank you.
Just take one with the
All right.
board
Okay.
and your family.
Okay.
You guys have a camera you want to use also? Or a phone? Hold on. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hey, Jim.
Just
How's that in?
It's very warm.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not the heaviest coat on in here. Right? The hot tea.
Oh, I know.
Hey, Tim, can you put the fan on, please? The fan, please. Thank you.
Kim says, sure.
Okay, well, that was fun. All right, so now we're ready to move ahead with the public hearings. Whenever you're ready, Madam Clerk, I don't want to rush it. Read the notice for the first public hearing.
Public hearing number 1, to consider the acquisition of 11 West Shore Drive in the hamlet of North Sea, New York, and amend the CPF priority plan and the CPF management and stewardship plan to include the property.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor, Town Board members, Jacqueline Fenlon, Director of Community Preservation for the Town of Southampton. We are here for you tonight for the purchase of 11 West Shore Drive, again in the hamlet of North Sea. This is a .6 acre property known as Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-32-1-20. And the property owner is 11 Shore Drive LLC, and they have expressed an interest in selling the property to the town of Southampton in the amount of $2,200,000. This property is proposed to be designated in the Community Preservation Project Plan as a wetlands target area, as it contains approximately 100 linear feet of shoreline along Little Peconic Bay and will preserve the valuable shoreline habitat and help achieve coastal resiliency objectives. The wetland target area is a defined, designated in the CPF project plan, which is a very indispensable and fragile natural resource. So we are happy to be here today to preserve the property at 11 West Shore Drive in North Sea.
Kevin, can you just make sure that you highlight the first poster on the wall? If you could just do that again.
Sure.
Director Finley.
And as you can see across the private road, there are other town-owned properties directly to like the southeast. So this will help preserve along the shore frontage of Peconic Bay, or Little Peconic Bay.
Is that a private road?
It is.
But the public could be able to access that property?
Yes, yeah, anyone, yeah, if, once the town purchases on a private road, the public will be able to utilize that private road to access the property.
That'll be a great access for the public.
Yeah, it really will, right on the water. That's great.
And thankfully, this area, it obviously has a small residence there now, but the residence is to be removed, so then it will be able to be reclaimed naturally with wetland vegetation.
No. It takes so long for these to finally make, is that the one with the giant black walnut tree? Okay.
Yes, it is, yeah. Yeah, so it has, which is interesting for this area, because usually you don't see a black walnut tree, but there's a large black walnut right there.
That stays, right?
Good memory, Cindy.
I try. There's always one defining feature that it,
All right, well, I don't have any cards on this public hearing. Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to be heard?
No one on Zoom.
No. Does anybody on the board have any questions for Jeff?
I just want to say this is another great access to the waterfront. It's a wonderful, this is what CPF and water quality monies should be used for, access for the people.
Yep.
And environmental for the property.
Yeah, so environmental as well as public access to our water. And this is Little Peconic Bay, and there's actually a really nice shoreline beach that you can walk along in this area.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
All right, so then, since there's no comments, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the second public hearing?
Public hearing number 2, to consider the acquisition of 51 Beach Plum Road in the hamlet of Noyak, New York, and amend the CPF priority plan and the CPF management stewardship plan to include the property.
Good evening again, Madam Supervisor and Town Council members. Jacqueline Fenlon, Director of Community Preservation for the Town of Southampton. So we are here before you today, and I just wanted to point out before I start explaining the property that this is actually 51 Beach Plum. So sorry, this one should have been third. But this is the property we were talking about currently. This property is, again, located at 51 Beach Plum Road in the hamlet of Noyak. This is also owned by 51 Beach Plum LLC, and the area is 0.4 acres, and Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-4-2-9. So 51 Beach Plum LLC, as the purported owner, has expressed an interest in selling the property for $775,000. This is also another property, it's impacted by freshwater interior wetlands, which is, again, an indispensable and fragile resource within the town of Southampton. And this property is located on a public road. Locust Lane and Beach Plum Road actually terminates right here. And as you can see, this property is right here. This is a small garage accessory structure that has been there for quite some time. We did a little research, but we couldn't find anything regarding the history or that it was of historic significance. So I just want everyone to be aware that we did research that structure. But then you can see the town also owns this area. This is technically a passive recharge area here, but we'll be able to essentially preserve this entire block. And then there's the Suffolk County Southampton Town, but beyond that is the Suffolk County Preserve, which people refer to as Clam Island and the Clam Island Trail. So this will allow this neighborhood to be able to navigate through a possible future trail connection to Clam Island in the vicinity. And it's just a really good objective. There is freshwater wetlands in the, close to the road frontage of this property. So this, again, is achieving wetlands preservation.
In terms of the access, is CPF doing anything to consider adding some sort of pathway or anything like that? Or
We can. Yeah, right now we're focusing on getting the property to you and to the closing table. But yeah, we'll look at that, and we can always coordinate. We coordinate really well with our Trails Advisory Board as well as the Trail Society, so we can talk to them about an appropriate linkage.
Perfect.
And it would be pretty short.
I just know that the residents in that community are very happy to see that being preserved because it was sort of up in the air, and they're very pleased to know that they're going to have access there. So
Yeah, and we had considered it once before, and it didn't move forward. So now we're able to achieve the preservation. And again, just, limit one additional house near the fragile freshwater wetlands. So no, impact from additional development.
What's that to the north before you get to the town-owned property? It looks like.
This is actually a road spur. So this is just part of the road, but it will never really need to be developed. As you can see, these properties have town road frontage. So this is probably a road spur, probably considering a connection in the past, but this will not be developed. There's no need to develop it now, as this is town and this will be preserved. And this property has road frontage serviced by, this is Treadwell Lane.
But it's not town-owned, or it is?
It is town-owned,
Oh,
but it just, it's a town, it's
It's a paper
town-owned
road.
spurred. Yeah, it's kind of paper road. It was probably planned for if the developments were ever going to connect. Yeah.
All right, well, this looks like a good one. I don't have any cards for this public hearing. Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom for the second public hearing?
There's no one on Zoom for it.
No. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Jeff? All right, then, since there's no questions, I'll move to close the second public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the third public hearing?
Certainly. Public hearing number 3 to consider the acquisition of 87 Shore Drive in the hamlet of North Sea, New York, and amend the CPF priority plan and the CPF management stewardship plan to include the property.
Good evening again, Madam Supervisor and Town Council members. So we are here before you for the property located at 87 Shore Road in the hamlet of North Sea. So this property is also a .4 acre property located at 87 Shore Drive, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-76-2-11. This property is owned by the purported owner of James F. Loesch and James M. Loesch, and they have expressed interest in selling the property to the town in the amount of $1,325,000. This property is proposed to be included in the CPF project plan under the Village Hamlet Greens Parks and Recreation and Open Space Target Area, as it provides public access to the Alewife Drain, which connects to North Sea Harbor, Davis Creek, and ultimately to Little Peconic Bay, and provides a recreational opportunity for town residents. If you can see on the aerial, it's quite a little small on this aerial, but there is an existing floating dock, so that we're looking at that as a possible potential for, a renovated dock or kayak launch in that area. And you can see that this is also adjacent to an existing kayak launch area that's owned by the community. So this will allow for additional public access for town residents.
Another great spot.
Yeah.
All right, so no cards on this one. Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom for this third public hearing?
No one on Zoom.
And the board have any questions for Jeff?
Yeah, I just want to, it be clear, it's not just for preservation. We're going to hopefully use it at some point for recreation, whether it be kayak or boating, whatever, so.
Yeah, so the Village Hamlet Green gives us the ability to use it for public access, small park area. Possibly we've talked about maybe installing some small rain gardens there to help alleviate some of the stormwater impacts. So that is our designation. That's why we're designating as such, so we can accomplish public access and recreation, but as well as open space objectives as well.
Right in that one corner is really low there. That's where we
Yeah,
were
you can
talking about the rain garden.
You can see some ponding here, and then obviously any
Right
way
there.
to capture it up gradient before it goes to that low spot.
Just like to say it a couple times because people forget that part.
Yes,
sometimes.
yeah.
Now, that's another Penny Point Park.
Just Penny.
Just Penny.
Yes. You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you again on this one.
Is anyone on Zoom, Kevin, for the third public hearing?
No one on Zoom.
No one on Zoom. Any other questions?
Do you have any questions for us on any other properties in the future?
So many, but we won't get into it tonight. I know you have a long meeting ahead of you.
Yeah, well, thank you,
Yeah,
Jackie.
you're welcome.
So I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thanks, Jackie and Dan.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Dan.
Let's see. Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the fourth public hearing?
Public hearing number 4 to consider amending Town Code, Chapter 312, Vehicles and Traffic, changing the speed limit on 3 roads, Big Fresh Pond Road, Lakeside Drive, and Parish Road in the Tuckahoe North Sea area.
Good evening, Thomas Houghton, Town Engineer. This is a couple meetings in the works. We previously spoke about a potential public hearing for this, I think a month ago this time, or 6 weeks prior, but here we are. So this process was started in 2022 by James Ding and a number of the homeowners in this area. There are 115 houses that front each of these 3 roads, and 58 of those homes, so just over 50% of the houses, have signed on to this petition, asking the town board and asking us to look at the speed limit on this road. In 2021, the New York State Assembly modified the minimum speed limit that a town road or a road can be, and they lowered it from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. That lowering must be accompanied by a study performed by a professional engineer that looks at the road characteristics, the number of cars, the number of accidents, everything and anything that has to do with this road. So we did that. We hired a firm. They went out and studied the road. They were there for 2 weeks counting cars. They looked at all of the curves. They looked at the widths. It's quite intense. So we received that study back. They recommended that this road is a great candidate to lower from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour for the speed limit. They also provided us a number of recommendations to sign those curves. So you would have those like yellowish, burnt yellow, like 20-mile-an-hour warning signs, like slow curve ahead, just to help people navigate this road. Because if you haven't been on this road for the public, it's tight, it's winding, it's beautiful. It borders Fresh Pond. Big Fresh Pond, excuse me. But it is a road that one should travel slowly on, just because of the nature of it. So we want to help increase the quality of life for these residents while also make it safer for our other residents to travel on. And by lowering it from 30 to 25, we're going to start achieving that. So we put together a public hearing, a resolution. The resolution's on for later tonight. We have a tremendous amount of community support on this one. I don't know if they're here tonight just because of the mix-up with the meetings and all that. I don't know if I was able to get them to show up like the last time. But everything that I've looked at for this, it is warranted to do. We previously talked about like looking at other roads within the town, and we decided, we'd address them as they come up. And since that last meeting, I have not received any requests, just to make you feel better.
And I just want to say, Tom, you actually very, in an articulate fashion, demonstrated the process. If we are to receive requests like that, we go to you, we do a site visit, we determine whether a study is warranted, we do a study, and we see what that study says. So there is a process in place that we are really working on here.
Yeah, and without a traffic engineer on staff currently, I'll be going out and looking at the road and kind of doing that initial screening process. So we can use our judgment and we can say, is this worth spending money on or is this not worth spending money on?
There was a conversation about there being a petition process whereby if the residents petitioned, we would do a study, and I didn't feel comfortable with that because I feel like it's very easy to get your neighbors to say, yes, lower the speed limit on our road. I'd wanted it to be a more scientific process.
Yeah, it's a way to get it kicked off, but ultimately my office needs to look at
I mean, this road, obviously, the residents put up signs that say, slow down, stay out of the lake.
Yeah, some of them are no-brainers, but the state still requires us to have that study done.
Yeah.
And in fact, didn't you say at the work session that the study showed people were already self-regulating themselves in this, trying to go slower
Yeah,
because they
I mean,
know it's a dangerous situation?
I talked to James a while ago, and I was like, this applies to the people that live on this road as well. And they're like, yes, we totally understand. Like, we won't speed ourselves going back and forth to our houses or anything like that. But the road conditions also tend to slow people down. Drivers tend to drive as fast as the road will allow them to drive, which is kind of evident when you're on 39, and 39's a faster road, but the speed limit is lower, so that's why it feels so out of place. But when you're on a road like this, you really are slowed down by the curves and the width and the amount of houses on it, and it does tend to keep the speeds lower, and we want to be able to enforce lower speeds and keep this road safer for our residents that live on it.
And on that note, one of the key findings of that study, as you mentioned during our work session, had been the findings of accidents.
Yeah, there
Reaching
were
that threshold.
There were no fatalities, thank God. There were 3 major, this is within, I can pull up the traffic data for you, but there was a significant number of accidents.
Study, yeah.
A lot of them were property damage of people driving off the road, which ended up happening likely because they were driving too fast. It's a kind of common occurrence when you have a windy road like that. People tend to veer off or miss a turn, or it's dark. I can pull all that data up, but it's definitely a warranted item.
We reviewed it at our work session, so
Yes,
we could
yeah.
cite the work session as a reference.
There's a lot of wildlife on this road as well.
Yeah, sure are. It's a pretty wooded neighborhood. And then a lot of these residents who live on the street, if they're on Big Fresh Pond Road, they tend to have that piece of property across the street for the water access. So it's typically held by the same party, and it's typically underdeveloped on that side. They're very small spits of land, but they are great recreation spots. So you have kids running across the street to go to the family's dock. You have just people going fishing from their houses. So there's a lot of like street crossing in this area where you might not see that in a different type of neighborhood where they don't own across the street as well. So.
Thank you for all your work on this.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. So if this moves through, the resolution's on for later tonight, the residents will be tickled. So,
It's currently 30 miles an hour,
yes, it's 30 mile an hour road right now.
and this would make it 25.
Yes. Yep. So because it is different than the area-wide speed limit, that's why it is going to have a special carve-out in the section of code that we are amending. So anything other than 30 gets put in that section until we possibly relook at the overall speed limit in the town. But that's why it's going to be an additional item in there, three added line items. Mm-hmm. So,
All right. Well,
any questions?
and I don't have any cards on this one. So, Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom for this fourth public hearing?
No one on Zoom.
No, no one on Zoom.
I'm sorry.
All right.
They,
Well,
they-
that's okay.
They brought it up at they have a homeowners association in the area, or is it civic or is it homeowners?
CAC, and then there's I think there is a
I think
homeowners.
there's a HOA. They brought it up at the HOA and they were kind of like getting ready to jump on, and
Yeah.
I probably didn't notice them enough for this, but
Well, we've been in contact with them, and they're very happy that.
yeah, I just want to stress that they're excited about it and something that they are looking for.
There's
So,
enough support on the board for this.
Yeah,
all right, good. I just,
yeah.
Thank you.
because as soon as I get down, that's it. So, very good. Thank you.
Thank you,
Tom.
Tom. All right, well then, I move to close this public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the fifth public hearing?
Public hearing number 5 to repeal Chapter 330 zoning, Article VA, entitled Affordable Housing Overlay District, AHOD, Section 29.1 to 29.11, rename Article VA to Community Housing Fund Overlay District, and replace Sections 29.1 to 29.10 with updated standards in order to coordinate zoning procedures with the town board's process for community housing approvals.
Good evening, Madam Supervisor, Board. I'm Janice Scherer, Town Planning and Development Administrator. And we just recently discussed this at work session, so I won't belabor it, but I did leave you a memo with minor edits that we discussed on this past Thursday. And as you know, this proposed repeal and replace, basically, the AHOD will be replaced by the Community Housing Fund overlay, but those overlay districts exist in a way that they are like on the shelf until you're ready to use them and land them. And when they are landed, that's when where they propose to be landed, we'll do secret analyses on each and every one of them. Just to point out that the missing middle housing that the law is talking about is from this book or equivalent, but basically it's a range of housing types and typologies that are meant to nestle in to existing settlement patterns and not overwhelm any one area. So that's an important component of this law, is that it's, small is beautiful, it's not a lot, it's not overwhelming. It's to a maximum of 35 units, and
Administrator Scherer, is any other municipality doing anything like this?
no, this will be the
This
first.
is very
It's
unique.
cutting
It's-
edge.
And one of the observations that I've made in the past couple of work sessions that we've had discussing this is that not only is this perhaps making us a little bit more conscientious about being serious about affordable housing, but it's also balancing the quality of life, maintaining the character of the community aspect as well. So it's attempting to reach that balance, which I feel that's been a goal for the town for many years.
I think you're absolutely right, Councilman. It's really about growth management. We're doing environmental preservation. We know we've tipped the scales and created somewhat of this problem because we've made it community preservation is a great, great thing, but it also means less land for everything else and higher prices. So to offset that now, we're trying to fill in where it's appropriate, and everybody can vet each and every one of them. You still retain actually all your discretionary power to do so. You're not divested of any power. You can regulate future zoning. It's that your normal discretion will be able to grant that CHOD classification and coordinate that with a funding request, so that your funding and zoning and everything is discussed and vetted all at the same time.
I think a part of this too was, we had discussions about projects that we, as a town board wanted to move forward, that we've allocated CHF funding for. And really, I think the community, because we went to them with the funding request and vetted these projects with them, they felt like these projects were more or less a done deal. And then to find out, like, we would get phone calls, like, why isn't anything happening with this? And, then it was, well, it has to go through an entire, change of zone process and potentially go to the ZBA. And it's, years and years down the line. And these are projects that we have community support for, which is, starting in this, when we started with affordable housing, there was a giant amount of pushback. I think people are finally coming around to see that this is a necessary thing, especially because we have community members now that are seeing their kids get places to live and, being able to have different types of housing. So, I think it's important to make that distinction, that this is for projects that the town is already invested in financially, and we want to see come to fruition, and we want to, we have community support for these projects. It's not like, we're shoving this down anybody's throat. We don't fund these projects unless they are supported by the community, so.
That's a very important point. And just so you know, the planning board is in full support, and I am scheduled to speak to the Suffolk County Planning Commission on December 3rd, who has also indicated to me they're very supportive and want to really use this, again, as in your leadership, as something that the rest of Suffolk County can look to. And especially, I was recently at a press sessions for the village, and we thought we were talking about, more about the environment or the lake, but it really, everyone's laser focus was on, we have no affordable housing. And so it's really a topic of concern for the villages as well. So they might be looking into how to do this for their own code, which is exciting. So I think, if you have any questions, or if you want me to go over those specific amendments, I
Yeah,
can.
when we discussed it at the work session, we discussed some changes, so why don't you just quickly go through what they are? I see that you've made the ones we
Sure.
discussed.
So, so if you go to page 2, the preliminary review for the consideration of projects, A3 would state the housing direct, so this is talking about like when they come for the initial vetting at a work session, right? So now the Housing Advisory Board, Community Housing Advisory Board, our housing director who's here, would bring a project forward in a work session setting, and this says the housing director or designee shall provide advance notice of the pending work session date to the Civic and/or Citizens Advisory Committee, if any, for the specific hamlet of the proposal, and a representative shall be given an opportunity to comment. So that's the new language, so we want to make sure at the earliest possible time, you're including that sentiment from the local community that
And
the
it's
proposal.
fair to, I just want to add on, like, it's fair to say that, and Kara, if you want to comment, that the CHF advisory board meetings, that when they consider projects, those are public meetings. Okay, and then the housing director or designee will provide notice to the various community groups about those considerations.
And we always do give them notice, but we want to give them notice to your board work session in case they want to come.
Yep.
So page 5 then, the next section would be 330-29.5. It says Town Board Public Hearing. It will read, a public hearing before the Town Board on a CHOD zoning designation shall comply with the same notice as per Town Law, Section 264, and Section 330-185. So it's just more specific instead of as prescribed, we just stated the exact sections. The next revision was 330-29.6, Town Board Action. A2, proposals that are for 100% senior housing and 100% disabled housing developments may serve households with incomes below 60% AMI. So, but everybody else has to stay within 60 to 130%, as described in A1. So we just added that 100% disabled housing to that section. Then on page 6, development standards, 33029.8B, location, and it's talking about the different parcels. And it's R20, CR40, CR60, CR80, CR120, and CR200 residence districts and business districts, and this is the change, except those that front on County Road 39, extending east from the SUNY campus to the intersection of Flying Point Road, that meet the minimum lot area requirement, which, as we discussed, is 60,000 square feet.
I'm pretty sure we were saying not just front on, but access, with the access point on 39, right? Because it's the same thing, whether you're right there or you have a long driveway up and.
Okay, so instead of, I thought we said, except those that front on or take access from.
What did you say, Jim, last time at the work session?
That has its ingress or egress directly to CF.
That's what front on means, fronting on it. So if you have a parcel, here's my parcel,
access it.
and here's the road I'm fronting on, my frontage is on the road, I must take access from my frontage. If you're not fronting on it, you're a flag lot. And so you're saying the ones that front, but you're saying, Supervisor, even the flag lots.
Well, it could
That's
be
what I thought we talked about at the work session.
I'm sorry, it could be a situation, if you front on a side road, but part of your property actually also fronts on CR 39, but it's not property that you can access, you know what I'm saying? Like, the piece that,
That fronts on or has exclusive access from County Road 39?
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I
Or
was
takes
getting at.
exclusive access from.
what about the college piece?
Thank you,
Okay.
Janice.
Sure. Then G, on that same section, 29.8G, it will say traffic access. Properties within a community housing fund overlay district shall have direct frontage on a public street. So that is not just town roads. And I think the next change, the last change, is on page 7 at the top, but it really starts on the bottom of 6, and that's related to the architectural style, H. And then.
Thank you.
And then 1, as per Councilman Iacilli, will say, the architectural vernacular of the closest hamlet heritage area or similarly designated area, if any, shall be referenced to provide an understanding of the established historical styles of the area. And here's the new part. Pattern books and other recommendations from adopted hamlet studies shall also be referenced and incorporated into a design program.
Excellent.
So those are all the changes that are in the code, and I'm here if you have any questions. I'd be happy to talk on.
All right, well.
I just wanted, before you go to the public, I just wanted to thank Kara for the Community Housing Fund Advisory Board. They did send in a letter of support, which we have received. It's part of the record, but I just want to read just a portion of it. We, the members of the Community Housing Fund Advisory Board, are writing to express our strong support for the proposed Community Housing Fund Overlay District legislation in order to establish a more efficient, responsive, and equitable framework for approving affordable housing. They go on to say the proposed legislation offers impactful reform by streamlining the funding and zoning process for qualified affordable housing projects while still maintaining appropriate standards and neighborhood compatibility. Also, the Community Housing Fund Advisory Board unanimously supports the proposed Community Housing Fund Overlay District and urges its adoption. This legislation represents a critical step toward creating a pathway that will enable the creation of affordable homes within the Southampton community, and they offer their support, and if any board members wanted to reach out, they're happy to have a discussion or answer questions.
Very good. Thank you, Kara. And let them know we appreciate their input. So, I do have a card on this, so don't go anywhere, Janice. Pamela Harwood. Oh, there you are.
See this crush of people waiting to speak. Hi, Madam Supervisor and members of the town board. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. This seems like a pretty big deal, I think, and there's a lot here that looks really good. But we first learned about it only last Thursday when one of our board members was watching the pretty long work session about it. And since it's a public hearing, the public should know something about it in order to be able to weigh in. And all we know about it is what was said at the work session. I got a pretty long cheat sheet from the board member who went and listened to the work session, and there's a lot here. And I think we have a lot to support about it. We just want to make sure that when we come to new overlay districts and things like that, that we're not rushing into anything. We just want the opportunity, maybe for a little bit of time, read whatever, Janice had before that shows all the changes and everything like that, so we can be familiar with it.
Pam, I just want to let you know, I did want to get it on for this meeting because it is the last evening public meeting. I will be asking that we hold this open for another public hearing on December 9th.
On December 9th,
Yes.
that's great.
Yes.
So that'll give us some time to get more up to speed with it, because it looks pretty extensive. Here's my cheat sheet, just from what was said at the work session, and some of the, because in the past, when I first started getting involved with the CAC, that's when there were all these mixed-use planned development districts. They were later nixed, I believe. There have been other things that have been tried and later had to take back. One of the things I could think of, so I'm sorry, is the pot shops, that I think we all regret the way that was handled. So we just want to make sure that things aren't rushed into. We have a chance to understand them. Not at all saying we don't support it, just want to know more. I'm so glad to see, and I think it was Cindy maybe that you suggested that the civics and the CACs be included in the process. I understand that there are floating overlay districts that would only apply to the properties where the developments would be taking place. And that's actually a concept that I was kind of thinking about for agricultural reserves, that when we learned recently that the easements don't override town code, and there's case law about it, and I was thinking maybe we need to change town code, and maybe they should be overlay districts the way aquifer protection overlay districts are, and they override town code. But apparently these easements, and I will speak about that at the public portion, so I don't want to take that time now. But just getting to this, it will override town code. You're trying to speed up the process. But whenever we're overriding town code, I think we really want to know and understand that. Are we just, fast-tracking things for the sake of fast-tracking them? Are we going to have enough time to really think each one of these things through? It looks like it would allow for some density here, 10 per acre, no more than 35 units, but at 1.5 acre parcels with up to 15 units, you could have a 6,000 square foot building. And it could be pretty difficult to match the appropriate scale to neighboring buildings with a 6,000 square foot building. So we have a little, concerns about some of this, but it's not to say that it couldn't be done and that it wouldn't be compatible, and especially the way things are designed.
30
So-
seconds.
So we're just asking, so now that you're telling me there's another public hearing, and is there a way that I can get a hold of what Janice has about the changes that were made?
I can give it to you, Pam, but it's also clocked in at the clerk.
It's what?
It's clocked in at the clerk, and also I can give it to you.
Okay, that would be great. And so thank you very
Is
much.
that going to be on the website too? So it's a,
It should be, it's in the legislative.
On the agenda.
We can provide it to anyone who's interested.
Okay,
yeah.
sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Pam. Next speaker is Wayne Bruin.
Good evening, board members. Happy Thanksgiving. Wayne Bruin, O'Shea, Marcinsigan Bruin. I'm here on behalf of the Southampton Housing Authority. I was retained a few months ago to assist the Housing Authority with some of the many projects that you have. In fact, 4 different projects that this board has already looked at and funded and actually spent town funds to acquire property interest. As the board had indicated, one of the problems we encountered immediately is each of those projects have different zoning, and to do the projects properly, they would require a variety of either zone change or zone change and variances or some other process, which, in my opinion, looking back at, were either awkward. In other words, you're putting MF44 districts because you had to find a district that would apply. And if you go back in the comprehensive plan, and it actually has language of where MF44 districts should be in close proximity to hamlets and so on and so forth, in which case placing this zoning wasn't really working with your comprehensive plan, and the process was awkward. So I believe this was part of the genesis of the discussion with the planners, that there should be a mechanism where this board, especially when you're using public funds, to have a process that can have reasonable standards and reasonable limitations to allow, as this board already discussed, placing these and distributing, not large projects where you've had in the past, the large projects with 50 and 75 units, trying to place those in a variety of hamlets. Rather, you're dispersing this. We're here, we support this legislation. We have participated in discussions with the planners. I was here at your work session and offered some comments. I believe the changes are appropriate that Janice has described, and we're here to help in any way possible. So if you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom for this 5th public hearing?
We have one person on Zoom.
Okay.
Hi, Meredith Berkowitz, again for the Bridgehampton Civic Association. Good evening to all of you and Supervisor Moore and the town board members. I'm actually the board member that Pamela referred to, who sat through the work session and also the planning board discussion of the proposal. As Pamela said, I don't want to repeat everything she said. I'm going to talk about some different aspects of it. I did want to say I also do support the changes that were discussed this evening. There were a couple of things I didn't quite understand from listening to that work session. One was, I'm sorry, I keep just looking at my notes a little bit. One was this process of streamlining the zoning, and I assume the purpose behind this, it sounded like, is because what Mr. Bruin just said, that, some of these projects were getting caught by existing zoning and needing a zoning change or a zoning variance, which can not only be quite lengthy but cumbersome, and it might not fit into any specific zoning. But I just want to make sure from the civic associations, we want to be sure that then, as we see sometimes, clever lawyers don't get a hold of this overlay and then try to use it to sort of skirt zoning in the future. So I just want to be cautious about that there's an understanding and sort of safety valves have been built into the actual legislative language. Also, on the density that Pamela was talking about, is there a limit on the maximum size of the unit? Because I also didn't see that. So if you have 35 units and it talks about sort of per acre, but what if you have lots of large units? Would it maybe be better to sort of tie rather than focusing on the number of units, but focus in on the proportion that the housing itself bears to the size of the parcel, and something, proportionality based analysis? And then another piece of it was, I know you made an exception for the disabled, but I was wondering if there should be an exception for senior housing, because that's one of our greatest needs, is affordable senior housing. And I know someone mentioned it would have to be 55 and older, which, as someone who meets the 55, maybe it could be a little bit older, because I think that when we're talking about senior housing, I think our needs are really for people that are older, much older than 55, that are more entering their last decade or two, and so just want to, they need to make sure they have housing. And then,
Mary,
sorry.
the language is, the proposals for 100% senior housing and 100% disabled, so it is in there.
Okay, we didn't have the whole thing, so we're trying to just piece together what actually gets discussed, so appreciate that, that's great. And then another question I had was, they mentioned equitable, at the work session, equitable distribution was mentioned, but it included with an emphasis on the east side, and I didn't quite understand what that meant if you're talking about equitable distribution. If it's equitable distribution, wouldn't it have to be equally distributed both west of the canal and east of the canal? So why would there be an emphasis necessarily on the east side? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, we just wanted to flesh out what that means. Those are very broad terms. And then also just want to say that for the CHF funds, does it have to be exclusive, or is it possible that this can be mixed with private development, or is it CHF exclusive money only?
After she's done, we can bring Janice.
Yeah. Right, I'm listing through all the questions. And then, and the last thing I just wanted to say is that I really, really appreciate all of the board's input and comments that were given during the work session and again tonight, especially for your inclusion and recognizing that getting community input ahead of time will make these projects go through so much more easily and sail through rather than, coming to a public hearing and hearing community opposition just because people are surprised and don't know much about it. Information in this case, I think ahead of time is really, really helpful in terms of garnering community support. So those are all my observations and questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Janice, did you want
Do you want to address the building size, Janice?
Yeah, so I'll just talk about the setbacks and buildings, and then Kara can talk about the commingling, a potential for funding sources. But let me just get to my code here. So there's a bunch of different development standards, right? And it's not just density, but it's the layout. So there's so many things that create that proportionality built into this code. So without having a specific, what happens is if I guess a number, it will inevitably not be the right number. So it's better to, when you look at these plans and you say, well, first of all, in the first instance, the lot has to be of such a shape, dimension, topography, and location that it even allows for this, right? Because we're not on some little strip of land somewhere squeezed into something that everybody goes, that makes no sense. So that's like number one. It wouldn't even be here if it didn't meet that first gatekeep, right? It has to be an adequate sized parcel to even do this. Then the layout has to have adequate setbacks. So once you have a normal shaped parcel, now you're coming in from the setbacks, right? So you're away from the front, you have maybe a buffer, or maybe there's some characteristic of the community that they want to keep, like a farm field or something where the setback makes sense. So it keeps getting pushed inward, right? In. And then,
But were we told that the setbacks would be, the buffers would be the same as the underlying zoning?
they don't have to be, but we will compare them, absolutely. And you'll make that decision when you get there in a concept plan. But this gives you the utmost flexibility to say, well, it's meeting that R20 setback, or, you know what, it's meeting this setback, and that's enough because it's actually near the railroad tracks, and there's nothing behind it, and it doesn't matter if it meets it. Like by there's spirit of the intent and letter of the intent, and this gives you that ability to, where are we? What are we even looking at? So the layout has to provide these adequate setbacks, screening, and can demonstrate compliance with all the design requirements. And the objective is to achieve a harmonious relationship with the existing natural physical contours and terrain of the property, meaning we're not just clear cutting, grading. We're going to try to, like I said earlier, nestle this in and be at an appropriate scale in proximity to neighboring buildings and adjoining land uses. So all those words mean everything that was just said here by. Then it gets into architectural style, and then the form, the spacing, the structural pattern, all of that. So that in the end, when you're like squeezing in the setbacks, you're pushing it in, you're creating, and you're saying, well, what's near it? What do the houses look like? What kind of typology are we talking about? And it also requires house scale. So on our gradient of missing middle, everybody always thinks we're all the way over here, but most of the time we're all the way
So I can simplify it even better for everybody.
Great.
And that is that, I know, like we said, Wayne said there's 4 projects that the Housing Authority currently has that are waiting for this. Those 4 projects have gone to the community, they've seen what they're gonna look like, they support them. This is not, we're not coming to you out of the blue with a 6,000 square foot box
Yeah, I
that
don't
we're
know where
trying to
that
put on a
number
little
came from.
property. We would never have support for that.
Right.
So these are projects that are going to the community. The community has already agreed. They fit the community. They fit the scope and size and feel of what the community wants. They've got support. We've gone through public hearings. We've given them funding. Now we're at the zoning. I mean, it's, we don't get here without community support. So, I mean, that's really, you can talk about scope and scale and functionality. If the community is not going to support it, we're not going to put it there.
Right, but when someone comes in and hands us a plan and goes, how about this?
You, before we even see it, you say, no.
Right, well, we have to be able to look at something to hold it against, so it's not arbitrary, and it does have a lot of standards. And just to quickly address that last part about with the equitable distribution, the conversation, it is equitable, but by just de facto, we all know that the west side of the canal, Hampton Bays in particular, has a lot more density than the east side, which was traditionally farms and that have been protected. So that's what we mean when we say that there's a distribution that happens on the west side that's already very dense, and we're trying to alleviate the traffic on County Road 39 and trying to create housing opportunities on the east side, as you've indicated to me many times.
Says in our housing
Yeah,
plan.
so that's what that means. And then Kara can talk about the funding.
Yes, so I think also it's important to note here that the first step in any project is that the developer has to make an application to the CHF advisory board first. And they're going to vet the project. They're going to take a look at it, and they have certain criteria that they look at to see if the project meets before they make a recommendation to the town board. So they look at things like, is the project in line with the character of the neighborhood? Is it close to transportation, a hamlet center? Does it provide a needed housing, like for the disabled, for seniors? And all of those things are kind of vetted out before they make a recommendation to you. So certainly if it doesn't meet those criteria, they're not going to make a recommendation that the project move forward. Like you said, Councilman, that those meetings are open to the public, and anybody can come and listen in and give their feedback to the CHF Advisory Board. But I think it's important to note that this is really to facilitate a more efficient pathway, right? So that we're not having two separate public hearings. A public hearing for you to consider whether or not to use CHF funds for this development, and then another public hearing, for a zone change. This will combine it all into one, and you can hear the entire information about the project all at once. The current code was drafted under conditions that were fundamentally different than they are today. Housing costs have outpaced income. Our workforce is now unable to live near where they work. Our young people are leaving the community. Our senior citizens can't afford to stay. Finding just fewer viable options, living options here within the town. So, now we have the CHF fund, which we didn't have before. So this is really kind of modernizing the process, and just kind of, using it and condensing it.
Kara, can you, just because some of the comments that were brought up, is seeking to understand more specifically the public element that the public will have a role to play. Can you talk just very, very briefly, and maybe Curtis Highsmith, who's here as well, maybe might want to comment. I know that in previous projects, Curtis and yourself have attended CAC civic meetings and reviewed certain proposals with the CAC, with the civic directly. And some of those comments that were made, North Sea in particular really stands out in my mind. Curtis, I think you attended a couple of meetings there, and there were comments made about the size, about the look, and a lot of those comments were incorporated in the project going forward. Do you want to comment on a little bit?
Sure.
on that?
I mean, we've had quite a few projects, and Curtis, as the developer of these projects, can certainly, comment on it. But listen, we're all about transparency, and in most cases, when we do get the public input, it makes the project better. The Eastner Motel being one of them. We went from one plan to now a completely different plan where we're going to, our vision is to put in single cottages for seniors. And I mean, each senior is going to have their own private space, their own private cottage. It's going to be a terrific project. That's something that came about through public comment and public participation, things like that. I think you had, Curtis, and you could talk more about the public comment with the North Sea project and how that came about, and that's now a better project. I think it was laid out one way, and now it's laid out in a much different way. So, I mean, I think that, it's good. We encourage the public to comment and tell us. The public knows what they need, right? They know what their community needs, and we appreciate it.
Well, Kara, to Meredith Berkowitz's comment about the age, I too felt that when we're talking about seniors that are on Social Security, that can't afford their homes anymore, I was not thinking about 55-year-olds. So, I mean, can we change the age to be 65?
Sure. Well, 62 probably plus, I would encourage. But I will tell you that my office, most of the calls we get are for senior housing. How people are, they've lived in this town their whole entire lives. They've rented, and now they're a landlord because the house prices have gone so high. Their landlord is now going to be selling the home, and they have to leave. They've been there for 20 years. They have nowhere to go. They can't afford the rent. And we've had quite a number of people who weren't even making that 55 mark. They were like 54, 53. So, we have people in our senior complexes like Eagles Walk and West Hampton Pines who are at 55, still working, but they can't afford, to live in other places. So I would encourage you to.
But you're taking the income limit off when you go to the seniors. And so the lower the age, I mean, now there's a qualification that's not being met because of the age. And I just think that 55 is, in my opinion, it shouldn't be that young.
Okay.
But 55 is what the Housing Authority already uses as a senior.
But does that mean that's what we have to use as a standard?
There might be.
No, you don't, you're not under an obligation. We can write the code so it says seniors 65 and over, or 62 and over, or whatever, the board feels is appropriate. We can make that change, for sure. But I'll let Curtis talk.
Right.
about it.
I'm Curtis Highsmith, Executive Director, Southampton Housing Authority. First of all, let me just say, because Dave Gallo, one of our developers, our main developer for Sandy Hollow and Speonk came in. I went flashback in this room, 2013, 2012. It's an entirely different tone and tenor during that particular time, to now where we're talking about actually pushing forward legislation to help move forward these projects and funding to support it on top of that. So we've come a long way in terms of how we handle our affordability here in Southampton. So I'm very pleased that the comments, even some of the suggestions were supportive suggestions, but whereas in past times they were a little bit more negative. My experience going to the CACs, the civics, the community, not just the CAC and civics, there are other individuals, there are residents, there are neighbors, there are individuals who don't necessarily go to the civic and CACs. They have their own reasons for not doing that. We will do door to door, and I have. I've sat at kitchen tables. We've had situations where I met people over at Sandy Hollow and had them come into the community room and speak to them because they did not agree with some of the comments, or at least the ideology of some of the civic and CAC associations. So we canvass before we even speak to the Community Housing Fund. You got to remember, before I can even put anything forward, I'm going through the health department to make sure it can get done. I have to talk to my engineer. I have a surveyor. I have someone to do a site plan. There's a lot of preliminary work that's done before we even get to a point where I can suggest a project to come forward. So when we normally and typically come before the Community Housing Fund, we pretty much have had a lot of underlying discussion. And so I know that one of the speakers talked about size. That's also going to be impacted by health department. Those you're going to have requirements that you have to mandate. If you have a multi-family community, chances are you're not going to have 6,000 square foot units. That's just not going to happen. So we're mandated by more than just town code. We have to also look at other provisions. Taking consideration right now what we have accomplished, what's in our pipeline now, because I was just doing the math. We have 28 homeowner units. They're in a pipeline, 40 rental units in our pipeline that will be impacted if this policy is passed. All east of the canal. One of them is a senior complex. We have first-time home buyer, and we also have workforce. That's a huge impact at one particular time, one period of time, more so than we've ever seen, and since I've been in my tenure in Southampton. So that in itself should be recommended. I appreciate the work that Janice has done, that Kara's done to put a process together that makes sense. In terms of senior housing, Hampton Bays Apartments is 62 and older. Typically, when we talk senior, it's usually not 55 and older. It's usually 62 and older, and that's also 62 and older and or disabled. So that's usually the premise behind whether it be project-based or any of our affordable housing units. So it's not uncommon for 62 being the benchmark. And being someone who's 53, I feel a little uncomfortable saying that 55 is senior. I certainly don't want to feel that I fit within the senior community. Exactly. But
And it doesn't mean that someone who's 55 can't live there. They have to comply with the income.
Yes. So you still have income limitations. Still have your background checks. All of those things still have to take place. So there's still, we put our own. Now you're talking our requirements on our particular projects. If that's something you're adding into the parameters of this code, I would elect that you allow that be the discussion when individuals come before you to present their application. You have a lot of leeway here. It's opened up the opportunity because we're seeing the community housing fund that they have recommendations and suggestions. But after that, we still have to come before you. You have a public process both in two scenarios where individuals have the opportunity to vet out, to discuss, give recommendations, give suggestions, write in comments. But more importantly, it gives you more control with limitations on maximizing at 35 units. So I think we look at it from a standpoint, you created a process, you made parameters, you have a benchmark, it's a good beginning, very good beginning.
Curtis, I just want to say that I've seen you in action. I've seen you in North Sea, I've seen you in Hampton Bays. I really appreciate how much effort that you take and work with Kara in our housing department to really involve the public. And I can say, just based on my experience working with you, I know the Housing Authority really does take that aspect seriously.
Thank you.
And it's a model that I think should really, earn the trust of a lot of our constituents. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I say it over and over again, these are my babies. I travel and look at each one of the units to make sure they're operating properly. I heard recently someone had a complaint, and I called the person immediately, because there's no way in the world that I want anyone to feel anything other than confidence that we're doing our job and that we're on the job for the community.
You coordinated with John Ortiz recently. I want to thank you for that. So, yeah.
I just want to say, and I said it at the work session, and I'll just reiterate again, that, the whole basis behind this code being the Community Housing Fund Overlay District is that a lot of projects that people want to see in their communities that are 35 units or less, that fit in the character of the community aren't able to be completed without the sourcing of the community housing fund money to offset those costs, because otherwise you just can't do a project that small to do the maintenance and the upkeep and everything else you have to do to make a project like that work. So, you know, it's not just a code to move things forward, it's a code that goes hand in hand with the funding that allows those projects to be successful at a small size. And, you know, as far as the senior and the 55 and over and putting that in the legislation, I would hesitate to do that because I don't want to make this more restrictive on the legislative side. We can always, as these projects come to us, make that a specific, you know, request that we have of the project sponsor, that we want to see it for an older age group, if it makes sense. I just would hate to further pigeonhole people into legislation that maybe doesn't work for certain.
Well, based on what Curtis said, generally it is 62. And I think under the HUD definition, the age of senior housing is 62 or older. And it's not that we're not saying they can't avail themselves of the housing if they're under 62. It's just then they have the income requirements. So I would like to add that for the next public hearing, just to, you know.
It's usually private places that have 55.
I was just gonna say that usually it's marketed in the housing generally, and it doesn't have to be affordable. I know Up Island, there's plenty of 55 and older communities that are very expensive. It's just marketed in such a way that it doesn't necessarily tie it to affordability.
But I will
To keep
also,
the children out.
but I will also say Eagles Walk is a good,
Walk's 50.
it's 55 and over, and sometimes we have a difficult time filling those units. And I think if you further restrict it, you know, to an older, and
Trouble
also.
filling the units?
Well, Eagles Walk has a very specific, they have second floor units, which if you're over 62, you don't want a walk-up unit. So those, getting somebody that's over 62 to get into a second floor unit is sometimes very difficult.
It
So
can.
that's what I'm saying about there being specific project limitations, but.
Well, I'll say this about the community housing fund, I'll take my seat. It has drastically changed the outlook for us to move forward and improved it substantially. Most recently, over the last year at least, I have a lot of for-profit developers that come to me, and they want to partake or participate, and they want to, you know, into with us in the affordable housing project, and we go over the budget for it, and they just realize they get to a point where it just doesn't work. So when we were able to take one of the largest costs or expense out of the equation, which is the acquisition cost, land in Southampton, it's expensive. I don't care if it's east or west of the canal, it costs a lot to acquire land. So when we're able to have that additional funding, I'm able to now accomplish the one thing that most people complained about when we start doing some of our projects. It can now really be affordable. It can sustain itself. The budget on it, we won't hold as much debt. Our debt services are low. So therefore, we were able to now provide real, true affordable units. When we did Hampton Bays, the 2 units at Hampton Bays, and we had the lottery here, you know how many people just said $502,000 is considered an affordable housing project? Well, when you have to get the land, construction costs, and you have no grants applied to that because you have a higher AMI, yeah, that's unfortunately still meets the affordability. But when I can take that out, and now I'm able to use the land acquisition costs, go over to the county and the state and get additional funding, keep my debt services as low as possible, now I'm able to provide low rents and able to sell these homes at affordable rates. It makes my job that much easier.
I mean, Supervisor, if you want to add that 62 in there for the income requirements, I mean,
Well, it's just also, you know, these wouldn't be 2-story apartments, because it says proposals that are 100% for senior housing, that, you know, and then it goes on. So if the whole development has to be for senior housing, right? And in that case, who's going to build senior housing with 2 stories? if
Eagles Walk.
People,
Eagles Walk.
or if there's elevators.
But we require that you have an outside entrance, so the Eagles Walk ones have an outside entrance to a staircase.
Curtis, you follow.
Yeah, I got to follow up with that because it's a problem. What ends up happening is when you have a senior community,
Can't get EMS up
people
there.
begin to age and it becomes more and more difficult to go up and down the stairs. So I get a lot of requests from our seniors, a reasonable accommodation, asking for chair lifts, some other form of transient in order for them to get to the second floor, which is an additional expense. So chances are a senior community wouldn't go 2 stories unless it's some type of elevator or some access point in order to get up to the second
Yeah, if
floor.
somebody's building it for seniors, they're not
Yes.
gonna build it for 2 stories.
So here's my question, though. So if it says proposals that are 100% senior housing and 100% disabled housing may serve households with low incomes, can you have a mix, Janice? Could your first floor be 100% senior and your second floor be workforce housing? No. It would have to be the whole.
So I would, if I may.
Yes.
I mean, I personally wouldn't, going forward, just because I know about Eagles Walk, wouldn't support anything that was a 2-story senior housing complex, just because I know the problems with it, but.
So it will say proposals that are for 100% senior and then parenthetically age 62 or older housing. That's what the correction would be there.
Well, that's what I'm asking for.
Right. So
I
I'll
mean,
add.
it could be something that we could just, of
So-
course, we'll discuss it at
But
the.
in our other codes, we do seniors, and in chapter 216 is 55 and above. So for community housing fund money, you're saying, we're not giving you the money for this 100% senior housing unless it's 62 and older.
But in
That's
your
what the
code, are you, that you're referring to, that's 55 and older, that's not for affordable housing, right, necessarily?
Chapter 216, it's, so
Only affordable housing for seniors?
chapter 216 is income eligibility for affordable housing, workforce housing, community benefit units. It governs like how you sell, resell, the equity share of things, it's all about like how you qualify. And so that definition lives there in chapter 216.
But what is it that's saying about 55 and over?
Seniors, citizens
code
start
says.
at 55.
Yeah, but what do they get because of that in that code section? Do they get special?
This is the only code that starts talking about the AMI restriction. In the other code, we're not specific to it. So in this code, you're saying anything in a CHOD that you create has to be income restricted between 60% and 130%, except senior housing, that could be below the 60% because, but then we're qualifying it further by saying it could be below 60% for 62 and over. And people like, me who are gonna be 55 and eligible to retire can't live there. Even though they may make, less money, but it's however you want to structure it. And if you want to add that definition, I recommend that you do it here because it's not there in 216.
So, if I could, so I see what you're saying, Supervisor. So in the code now, in some of the developments that we had, the senior developments that we have, that's West Hampton Pines, Eagles Walk in East Quogue, in order to be able to reside there, you have to be at least the age of 55. But in this case, I think what you're saying is, if we are going to fund a development and allow that development to be under the income of 60% of the area median income, then there is a purpose for that person probably is either retired or heading towards retirement, and so there is a reason to have that at age 62 plus, because we're giving funding and we're allowing it to become under the AMI. One of the reasons why there is an AMI in here is that because we're giving funding, our real need here is for workforce housing. Again, the people that our workforce can't afford to live near where they work, right? So that's why we have language in this legislation that it be truly for workforce housing. 60% to 80% AMI is what HUD's definition of workforce housing is. We go higher than that just because of where we live. So we go up to that 130% AMI. So between 60 and 130% AMI is workforce housing. So that's really what we intended this, but we carved out exceptions because we really need senior housing and we need housing for disabled. So we carved out those as exceptions. So I understand what you're saying, Supervisor, is we're giving funding and we're allowing these developments to go under that AMI, then maybe we really should be, they should be for people who are no longer working or can't work or are headed towards that.
That is my point, Kara.
Can I ask,
I think Bonnie wanted to speak. Bonnie, did you want to speak?
Yes, I did.
Come on up.
First of all, excuse my attire, but I work with children, so I came straight from the Bridgehampton Child Care and Recreational Center. Bonnie Cannon, and I am a resident in Southampton at 54 Miller Road, but I'm also the chair for your town of Southampton Housing Authority. The only thing that I wanted to say is that from my standpoint, from hearing the discussion, the end goal, your end goal is to pretty much to have more affordable housing as your overall goal. It's for more affordable housing. Looking at your age limit, whether or not they're 55 or 62, I think the bigger picture is who are we offering or who are we creating affordable housing for overall? What is your percentages that you're looking at? Are you going to cut yourself from percentages as to your overall goal? If you cut it at 62, you have an opportunity, if you keep it at 55, to come back and to have some say as to what is going to happen with that project. So why cut off the percentage gain that you can get for your overall end goal for affordable housing overall? Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Or am I missing something?
Well, you know, a lot of the goal is the workforce housing, because people can't afford to live out here and work out here. And so, and in addition, for seniors and disabled.
Exactly, so with that.
That's the goal.
Right, and so with that end goal, that there being for workforce housing and senior, you don't cut the maximum that you could possibly get by having 55 in there, and you do have a say-so as to if you do want it just to be 62 or older, depending upon the project. But if you put in the legislature that it is
Cuts it off.
that it just cuts it off, the 62, it cuts it off, and you're not you're missing that piece of the people that are 55 that may need the help from the Community Housing Fund.
Bonnie, you're suggesting that we are more flexible?
Yes. Yes, you'd be more open and more flexible, and then you have a say-so, but you still have a say-so as to what you want to do with the project versus just putting it point blank in the legislature. That's
But then
my,
everyone would come in and ask for the lesser restrictions.
well,
Just like if we don't put restrictions in the,
well,
you know,
if
the
you have the
income
50,
restrictions.
if you have the 55, you have the 55 and older in there, you do have a choice as to, but I'm saying
Right,
that,
everybody would want the 55.
no, not,
Developers, because they're going to get more people.
no, 55 and older. Whoever's going to apply 55 and older, you have a decision that you can make. All I'm saying is that you want to have flexibility. That's all I'm saying, so that at the end of the end game, that you be able to gain more.
I think what's missing here is we're assuming that everybody between 55 and 62 is not making over 60% AMI, when it's very likely
Yes.
that those people
That's what
that are 55 to 62 are working and they're still making over that income level until they retire, and then their income drops off, but then they're in place in somewhere that they can afford to live.
Exactly. Thank you.
We're not waiting till they get to that age to put them somewhere.
Well, we'll see what happens at the next public hearing. Yes? Sure, quickly though, because we have to get to the people on Zoom.
I see a number of questions here that maybe we can learn between now and the next public hearing. But at first, I thought when we were talking about Community Housing Fund, that it would be funding everything about the projects. But now I'm hearing tonight that maybe the Community Housing Fund money will only go toward purchasing land, and that money for the rest of the housing project we're going to look for Curtis you mentioned state and county. And one thing I do know is, we've always had trouble figuring out or agreeing on who exactly is this housing for. It's not the same for each housing development, I'm sure. But lots of people say, I want people who grew up in the community to be able to stay in the community. But then once you start going to state and county funding or federal funding, you no longer have that ability. I understand it. If you have to open it up to people who are live everywhere in the county, everywhere in.
Unless it's a housing authority.
Yeah.
And I believe the housing authority, correct, Curtis, that there's more?
No, we can't limit.
Are you saying preferences?
We can't give preferences.
I'm saying that once you take
No, in
money
terms
from
of
the
the-
state
she's
or the
saying if
county,
we
you can
receive-
no longer say that only Southampton, people born in Southampton town are eligible.
Curtis, do you want to just
Yeah.
address this?
I don't think there's ever a time this conversation doesn't come up when we
Yeah,
talk
right,
about housing,
sure.
because I know, generally, we would love to be able to say that any development we build, develop within the community would go for our community members, and only our community members. Unfortunately, fair housing doesn't allow that. Fair housing states that, and this is the law, and I've stated it over and over again. Can you have preferences? Technically. However, how can you actually have preferences? You need to be able to demonstrate that whatever preference you have doesn't violate or does not infringe upon a protective class. How do you do that? Well, you have to be able to determine whatever demographic you use. So if it's medical emergency, EMT, police officer, that every person that's within that demographic is met by a protective class. Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of census. It doesn't exist. So what ends up happening is doing it itself isn't a violation. Someone will have to feel harm, or an agency like a Long Island Housing Services or racism or some agency, oversight agency will look at that and say, well, you have this preference, you did not demonstrate that you are not infringing upon the protective class, and now municipalities have a lawsuit because they've
So what are you
violated.
saying? Are you saying that when we use our own CHF money, can we say we want it to only go to people
True.
who grew up in the
You can't really go back and forth to have a conversation.
Yeah, and I want, what I will do is, you asked me to come to your civic or,
Yeah, yeah.
I would be glad to go, and have the conversation with you.
Good.
The other hat that I hold is I'm the vice chair of the Suffolk County Human Rights Commission. I chair its housing subcommittee, so I do these speeches on a regular basis
Hey,
throughout.
Curtis, can you talk to us, please?
Yes, I'm sorry.
You have to sit down.
And so, the quick answer is, can you? Yes. How do you do it? Some people or some agencies or municipalities will say, well, you know what, we'll just do it. And because the project is good, who's going to complain? And some people have gotten away with that. My job is just to tell you the law.
Thank you, Curtis.
Okay.
Thank you, Curtis.
And I just had one more thing, and then once these are built, who's going to maintain them? Where
This
does
is
the
not,
money
we
come?
can't, we're,
You can't keep coming back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Something to think about. I'll do it next time. Thank you.
Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom?
No one on Zoom.
Okay. Well, so at this point, I'd like to move to hold the public hearing over to the December 9th meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice for the 6th public hearing?
Public hearing number 6, to consider amending Town Code, Article 4, multifamily planned residential development district as it relates to expiration of approvals.
Kathleen?
Evening, Madam Supervisor, members of the Town Board. For the record, Deputy Town Attorney Kathleen Murray. When considering an application for the use of a floating zone within the town, such as the Multifamily Planned Residential Development District, or MFPRD, the Town Board often spends 1 to 2 years reviewing an application to be sure, among other factors, that it meets community planning objectives and is consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. After any approval by the town board for what is often larger projects, applicants must then go to the planning board to obtain site plan and/or subdivision approval. Notably, an applicant may not receive final planning board approval until other agency approvals are obtained, including but not limited to the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. Thus, given the time it takes an applicant to navigate these approvals, coupled with the time spent by reviewing agencies to consider an MFPRD, the purpose of this law is to extend the expiration of an MFPRD district from 18 months to 3 years with 2 additional 1-year extensions. This allows for a total of 5 years for an applicant to complete the site plan and subdivision process and to obtain all outside agency approvals. We did receive a referral back from the Suffolk County Planning Commission indicating that this is a matter for local determination, and your local planning board passed a resolution supporting the amendment. Does the board have any questions?
Well, I understand why the 18 months certainly wasn't long enough. But, you know, the fact that it could go out for 5 years makes me feel like that's a little too long.
That's a policy decision for this board. You know, it's 3 years with an opportunity for 2 1-year extensions, but certainly that's a discussion for this board.
And the extensions must be done by resolution, and at the end of the 5 years, if they don't have permits and haven't begun substantial construction, then the town board shall hold a public hearing to consider whether the district should revert to its prior zoning. There was some language in the old law that we came across that was problematic, and so I worked with Kathleen Murray on this to kind of come up with a reasonable time frame for these projects. As she said, some of these projects don't get through this board for 2 years. So it's, you know, just being realistic in timeframes, dealing with Suffolk County Board of Health and all the other agencies that they have to go through, and especially if there's a subdivision process, and, you know, it's just, in my mind, being reasonable.
Are you planning on keeping this open, or
I was not planning on keeping this open.
is this on for the agenda?
This is not on the agenda, no.
So they would still have, the applicant still needs town board approval for each of the 1-year extensions.
Correct.
So that could be denied if it appears that they are not moving forward in a
Yes.
conscientious manner.
Yes. To the extent that it, you know, it helps instruct your process. Oftentimes at the planning board, if there are many adjournments, the planning board will ask, or many requests for extensions, the planning board will ask the applicant to come in and explain to them what's taking so long, what are the issues, what are the problems. And I can say in my time with the planning board, probably 99% of that time is getting through the Suffolk County Department of Health Services.
Mm-hmm.
And as we saw, you know, the old code had 6-month extensions, and as we saw when we did the BES zoning, and we did that moratorium, extending it even 6 months was, we were redoing it. By the time we got through the process and had public hearings, we were already having to extend it, so.
Is this just for the planning board to give,
Town board.
it's requiring them to go to the town board? Because
This is a town board resolution.
No,
The
no,
town
no,
board
no, no.
grants the zoning.
They have to get their
This
building
is
permit.
Who does the applicant go to, which board to be granted the extension?
Oh,
Us.
this board.
This
This board, yeah, yeah.
Just wanted to
absolutely,
clarify
this
that.
board, yeah. No, I think Kathleen can explain it, just the idea that it takes, once this board approves the change of zone, they have to go to, file for site plan approval for planning board, which can take, and we all know that can take up to 2 years at times. And then also, like Kathleen mentioned, the health department can take 2 or 3 years easily at times.
So if it expires during that time frame, they go back to us?
If
And
they
ask
have
for an
3 years,
extension.
and if they have 2 1-year extensions for a total of 5 years, and then if they haven't completed after the 5 years, then we have a hold a hearing to whether we want to consider it to return the zoning to the prior zoning.
Correct. And just to be clear, the planning board cannot give final approval until there's health department approval. Other towns are different, but in this town, we require health department approval prior to final conditional approval from your planning board.
And then they have to get building permits, and then they have to build.
So years can lapse while they're in front of the planning board, well after you've already opined on it. So that kind of is the impetus too.
Is this the whole thing about, but then after the 5 years, the 3 + 2, we could hold a public hearing,
We have to hold a public hearing.
the town board shall hold a public hearing to consider whether the district should revert to its prior zoning classification.
Should say must.
Shall
I
is-
think that might be the same thing, but,
Shall is the appropriate language there.
but that makes it seem like the zoning was dependent on the applicant. Isn't the change of zone, if the board determined that the zone should be changed regardless of who the applicant was?
It's based on the project usually. And if the project goes through the full secret, it's very project dependent.
I mean, you could say you don't want any expiration on the approval of a project if
I thought that's what Jim had been saying, like, once you give a zone change, why would it expire?
Well, some towns do that. I mean, and to Jim's point, if you believe in the project, then why is there an expiration of approval? But the other side of that discussion is, well, we want to make sure that these developers are moving on that.
Yeah, it's a way to keep them in check.
Facilitating it. So this is
coming back to
a
this
reasonable
board.
timeframe is-
a mechanism to revisit that and to make sure that there is progress.
Right, sometimes things change around the area too, right? And So,
Yep.
so sometimes a situation where the board would consider the change of zone at one point, if it goes too long, the community area could change so dramatically that the change of zone is no longer appropriate.
That's
Whether
a
it's,
good point, yeah.
Whether it's 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, that's 10 years,
Yeah.
it's,
All right, well, it gives the board flexibility to deny the extensions if we feel like it was
Right.
appropriate. All right, thank you. So Kathleen, we do have some cards on this one. All right, let's see, Pamela Harwood.
Very, very quick question about this. Could you just clarify for me, is there a difference between multifamily planned residential development district and a subdivision?
Yes.
Kathleen could come up with some explanation.
Do you have any other questions? Because we're not going to go back and forth.
Right.
I would say a multifamily PRD is a type of subdivision. It's a category of a subdivision, if that makes sense. So,
No, I just want to know what's the difference, and if there is a difference, what is the difference?
Subdivision doesn't come to this board.
if it's as a right, it would just stay in the planning.
Just to the planning board?
yeah, the MFPRD is your zoning classification, but the subdivision is the actual tool to implement that zone. Does that make sense?
So the planning board has to do the
Correct.
the subdivision.
Correct.
That's
The
not-
planning board is charged with your site plan subdivision review. The MFPRD is the zoning, right? So it's higher up, and then it's implemented through the planning board at the subdivision level. Does that make sense?
If it doesn't, I'll reject it.
Okay. Thank you. Kevin, is anyone on Zoom for this final public hearing?
No one on Zoom.
No. Does the board have any more questions?
Nope.
All
You
right,
guys
then.
answer them all?
All right. Then I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so let's move forward with the rest. Oh, no, it's public portion, that's what it is. Sorry, I almost skipped over it. Only one card, Pamela, come back up.
It's my night. I don't come often.
Came here Thanksgiving week, you get your money for.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you. Thank you. The first 3 or 4 public hearings tonight were about the purpose of CPF properties. And in Bridgehampton, we're finding one of the problems with a lot of properties that had been purchased with CPF money where the development rights were purchased with CPF properties, mostly agricultural reserves and reserves associated with subdivisions. And what's happening is that the restrictions on these properties, when they were purchased with public money, are not being enforced. And it appears there's case law to say that neither the planning board nor the ZBA have the authority to take the easement associated with the CPF purchase and have it override town code. It's completely nonsensical when you think about it. What's the purpose of an easement that covers a reserve that was purchased with CPF money to keep it as a reserve and restrict its usage and development rights if that easement can't override town code? That's why I referred to earlier that possibly what we need to do is have the town board create floating overlay districts over these properties to protect them. Because right now, so when tonight you approved the CPF purchase of 3 or 4 properties, but who's going to make sure, and these houses, you know, these properties get bought by one initial person, say, and then they're flipped over the years. I'm not saying quickly, but over the years. And the first person who buys them may have all the intention to abide by those easements. Yes, I want to keep this reserve. This is beautiful, or it keeps my forever view. But then as they're flipped, we're seeing that as land gets to be, we have less and less land, that developers are coming in, very wealthy developers are coming in and wanting to do more with these properties than they are allowed to do by the easements. I know, Mr. Burke, you're very familiar with this. So I get concerned when I see all these approvals. We're spending CPF money, and I love preserving land, and I love the fact that we have a community preservation fund. But I think we have to make sure that when we use this money, that we are also protecting those properties to be forever in the use that you're intending them to be, and right now I don't think we have a mechanism for it. The second thing I want to mention very quickly is on my way here tonight, there's a building site on Lumber Lane in Bridgehampton. I counted minimum 25 vehicles parked on this building site. And we talk about all the traffic that we have, the traffic problem. At least half of these vehicles were just ordinary sedans, not carrying tools or not trucks, workers coming in their own cars. And I wonder if the town board can see its way to eventually figuring out whether people can carpool with the developers and can have their employees carpool, and whether or not, you know, we can restrict the number of vehicles on one building site. Thank you.
Pamela, I'm actually putting forth legislation that now gives the chief building inspector discretion of limiting the cars per work sites. We didn't have that in the code previously, and I believe that it is on for tonight, correct?
Pretty sure
It's on for tonight?
Yeah.
I'm
To
pretty
set the
sure.
public hearing.
To set the public hearing,
Oh,
yes.
to set the public
Yes,
hearing.
sorry,
I
correct.
don't know how it would work by him having discretion over how many on each site. It
They would
seems
look
a
at the
little bit
size and scope. So it's actually really dealing with noise and construction from construction noise. But Councilman Pell wanted to also make sure that we are limiting the amount of vehicles that are coming onto those properties, which I've also dealt with many constituents raising concerns about that.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
it's getting it at two sides.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And regarding the properties, I believe that we have someone who goes at least once a year to check on all of the properties to make sure that they're in compliance. But if you saw, you know, in particular violation, we could report it.
I think the difference from what Pam was talking about, and I could be wrong here, is like ag reserves through a subdivision process, which aren't generally purchased with CPF funds. They are a carve-out as basically a give back for getting your subdivision process.
Right.
And each one of those has different
Yeah,
stipulations on it, different, however,
Not you then.
no.
right. I think that's more your concern, right? The agricultural reserves that are,
Excuse me, Councilman Pell, we're gonna get back to the podium. Actually, my impression is that many of the reserves associated with the private subdivisions are not purchased with CPF funds, that they're part of the quid pro quo of a developer getting permission to have a subdivision and as part of that approval, you have to set aside a certain amount of space. In the old days, unfortunately, those reserves were in the center of the subdivision, so only the people living in the subdivision actually had the benefit of seeing that open space. I believe now the town has moved toward having the reserved properties be more on main roads so the public can enjoy the vistas and the open space as well. But the CPF purchases are more like just when a farmer, I'm thinking of the application right now, North Edge Stables, that was a property on Scuttle Hole and Lumber Lane. It's been open space for years. It was sold by the Comfort family that still owned Comfort Farm years ago. And the development rights were purchased with town money. I don't know back then whether there was CPF, there probably was, but the development rights were purchased. It isn't part of a subdivision. I don't think it was part of a subdivision, but it has restrictions. And now, and it's not the only property, there are probably 4 to 5 properties right now that were not part of subdivisions, just reserves, where the town bought development rights. They've done it with farmers. Farmers have sold their development rights over the years with, and they're not associated with subdivisions. So mostly I'm concerned about the agricultural reserves not associated with subdivisions, but it's a problem with both areas.
Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom for public portion?
Yes, there is.
Hi, Meredith Berkowitz again from Bridgehampton Civic Association. I was supposed to be there tonight with Pamela. Unfortunately, I was a little under the weather today, so I'm working from home. I just want to reiterate what Pamela was saying about this need with these, the subdivisions, the parcels that are set aside as ag reserves, both from subdivision and that are purchased with development rights. There really is, they are under fire. To give you an example, my favorite property that we can talk about where I am the neighbor, and I want to be clear about that, but it is not just about my personal interest in that property. It's that 625 Butter is a perfect prime poster child, as is North Edge Stables, which is the corner of Lumber and Scuttle, as Pamela said, for what is going on. And now there's a new subdivision going up on Scuttle Hole Road called Scuttle Bridge, where 8.6 of the 16 acres are supposedly being set aside. But as Pamela said, what happens is usually the first owner, maybe even the second or third owner of these ag reserves, when they're privately held, they want to abide by these restrictions. They probably purchased that property because they care about agriculture and preserving it. However, what's happened in the last few years is we've seen very, very wealthy buyers come in and snap up these reserves attached to some homestead. And what they want to do is monetize these reserves. And they do that in a way that is all about the tax shelters or building carriage houses and calling them ag labor housing, or building, barns that the sport courts, and they put them in a barn and they call it a barn, and this is happening all over town. And we know of what's happening in Bridgehampton, but I have to say, I can't believe it's just limited to Bridgehampton. This has got to be happening all over Southampton. And so the concerns aren't, like I said, 625 is a poster child for this. You have an owner where he came in, he knew that these restrictions, that this easement existed, and the first thing he wanted to do was build 3,000 square feet of housing on this reserve. That got litigated. The owner lost that litigation, and he's pursuing an appeal, but honestly, I don't see that he's going to win that appeal, but we'll see. And then he also built some shelters on it, but he didn't go to the planning board, and he didn't get approval for them, and he built them without permits. There are people who come in and they're taking these reserves and acting as if it's their own personal property, instead of the intent, which was to preserve them for the community and for the surrounding homes.
But Meredith, it sounds like in both those instances, the town litigated and prevailed.
Correct,
So
absolutely.
what else can we do when somebody doesn't come in for a permit? If they did, it would be denied, but if they don't and they go ahead and do it, and then we have to take them to court.
Well, so in the first instance, the town didn't litigate it. What happened is the owner litigated it, and the town defended the action, right? But it took 2 years to get the town in 625 Butter, when it was before the zoning board of appeals, to Pamela's point that she's making, 2 years to get the town board at that time to say that housing wasn't allowed, that this is what the easement says. And even as, you and I were talking about, the board, we were talking about at the last board meeting, the alpaca are, on this property, are a completely separate issue from the housing and the shelters. Like now there's also alpaca that have been there since December of 2020, and nobody's doing anything about them. And that's, are we saying pets are now a commercial use? Because, and here's where I wanted to say on that point, is that if you accept, for example, that owner's argument that pets are not, that are somehow permitted on this property, which has a very, very specific easement that limits it to commercial agriculture, what's to stop the next person, or even this owner, as he's threatened to do many times, from making it a pig farm and just saying, well, the pigs are all my pets. I really like pigs. I just want to have them. And, it starts to snowball, and you start to see that what happens is these owners build, these rich owners come in and they build upon what the person had before. So you give them a hand and then they take an arm. You give them an
30
arm and they want a leg. So that's really the problem that we're seeing. And it would be really good if the town board, who is the only party that has the ability to enforce these easements, and that is the case law, it is the town board as the grantee is the only entity who can do that. If the town board would start to enforce these from the get-go, rather than making neighbors defend and then asking and begging for the board to come in. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, is there anyone else on Zoom?
That is all for Zoom.
All right.
I have a friend who has pet pigs.
I move to close public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we're gonna move forward with the resolutions.
They're very nice.
All right, Michael, why don't you get us started?
Town Board Resolution 2025-1385. This is co-sponsored with the entire board. This is to authorize the acquisition of a historic preservation and conservation easement on property located at 11 Walnut Avenue in the hamlet of East Quogue, and amend the CPF project plan and the CPF management and stewardship plan to include said property. I've had discussions with CPF Director Fenlon, and we are going to withdraw this resolution.
Second.
Very good. All in favor?
Town Board Resolution 2025-1391, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell. This is to authorize the purchase of shredding, destruction, recycling of confidential records. This is just part of a usual protocol and procedure that is done within the town clerk's office, and I'd like to see this move forward.
I was gonna say, it doesn't sound good.
I know.
Second it, and maybe the town clerk can say something about it. The old one is the one we replaced, it's like 20 years old, or 30 years old.
It's approximately 20 years old, I want to say, yes, and it has served the town well, because right now we have hundreds of boxes that are piling up in the interim of a week, 10 days since the thing has gone down. But the cost to fix it is close to the cost to buy a brand-new one.
So we're buying a new one.
So you were going to look into the highway department potentially helping us to
Yes.
remove it, which would be wonderful if we could do it
Let us
in-house.
know.
But, this one will hopefully, it's the same model, same brand and company, so hopefully it'll serve us for another 20 years.
But these records are in the course of the regular records management routine
Absolutely, for the
timelines.
entire town of Southampton, not just the town clerk's office. There's dispositions and retention schedules and such that we abide by according to New York State law. And, boxes come over every day that are ready for destruction. So we need to accommodate that need, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Do you have a motion in a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1392 to authorize purchases of boiler, breaching, repair, service, and new construction from commercial instrumentation services using the Suffolk County contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Aye, thanks, same to
Sorry,
you.
who was the second? Bill?
Bill.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1393, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, to to authorize purchases of concrete, asphalt, and related site work improvements from Eastern Suffolk BOCES contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1394, authorized purchase of construction equipment and dredging service used in Suffolk County contracts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1395 to authorize purchases of General Motors, Chevrolet Chrysler, Dodge, and Ford OEM repairs and parts from the Eastern Suffolk BOCES contract with T&T Baldwin Automotive, Inc. and DCO Motors Eagle C LLC, doing business as Eagle Chevrolet of Riverhead.
Second, and Madam Clerk, I'd like to co-sponsor.
Certainly.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1396 to authorize purchases of motor vehicle oil, lubricants, and fluids for using the Town of Huntington contracts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 1397 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell. Authorize supervisor to sign a contract extension for maintenance, installation, repair of water mains with Roadwork Construction Corp.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1398, authorized supervisor to sign a contract to extend with AAAA Long Island Waste Oil for remove and recycle disposal of waste oil.
Second.
All in favor?
Town Board Resolution 2025-1399, authorized supervisor to sign contract to extend with Ecotech Management LLC for electric waste removal and recycle and disposal program.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1400 to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract extension with S&M Tire Recycling, Inc. for scrap tire recycling services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1401, authorized supervisor to sign contract to extend with Turner Cesspool Service, Inc. as primary vendor and Clear River Environmental Service Corp. as a secondary vendor for on-call service for transportation of landfill leak.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1402 to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Universal Drilling and Boring Services, Inc. to conduct various soil test reports for Southampton Youth Services basketball and tennis court.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1403, co-sponsored by Council members McNamara and Pell, to authorize the supervisor to execute a 2026 fire protection contract with the Village of Quogue for the North End Quogue Fire Protection District.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1404, co-sponsored by Council members Pell and Iacilli, to authorize the supervisor to execute the 2026 fire protection contracts with the Village of Sag Harbor for the Bay Point and Noyak Fire Protection Districts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1405, co-sponsored with Councilwoman McNamara, authorize the supervisor to execute a contract extension with AC Schultz Incorporated for Quail Run test boring.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 2025-1406, authorize the supervisor to execute a contract to extend with LK McLean, Associate Engineer and Survey, DPC, on-call engineer service to be provided to the Highway Department for various townwide projects.
Second, and Madam Clerk, may I co-sponsor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1407, authorize the supervisor to execute a no-cost contract extended with LK McLean, Associate Engineer and Survey, DPC, for engineer, design, and permit service for shoreline stabilization for the North Sea Road in Southampton.
Second, and co-sponsor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1408, to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract extension with Riverhead Building Supply and Fowler's Garden Center for fencing and stakes.
Second.
All in favor? Town Board Resolution 2025-1409, to authorize the supervisor to execute a contract extension with Riverhead Building Supply, RFC Residential Fences Corp., and Fowler's Garden Center for fencing and stakes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1410 to authorize the supervisor to execute a no-cost extension of term of contract for the Riverside Sewer District Professional Service Agreement with Leonard Marchese, MBA, CPA.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 1411 of 2025, co-sponsor Supervisor Moore, authorize the supervisor to execute a preventative maintenance agreement with Best Climate Control for maintenance service on the air conditioning and/or heating equipment at Southampton Town Police Department main building located at 110 Old Riverhead Road, Hampton Bays.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1412, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Young Associates to provide land surveying services for the properties located at 1221, 1181, and 1143 North Sea Road in Southampton.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 1413 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell, authorize the supervisor to sign a contract extension for liquid caustic soda with Univar USA, Inc.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1414, authorize supervisor to sign a contract to extend with Waste Zero, Inc. for the supply and distribution of the garbage bags.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1415, co-sponsored with Councilman Ioza, this authorize the supervisor to sign a sole source contract with General Code LLC for service for the town clerk's office.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 1416 of 2025, authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Pi Barker Fire and Safety LLC, doing business as Briscoe Protective, for 1976 North Sea Road, Conscience Point Marina.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1417, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell, and award and authorize supervisor to sign contract with Ken Russell, Inc. for Bay Drive Water Quality Improvement Phase 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 1418 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell, award and authorize supervisor to sign contract with Norco Construction, Inc. for Poxabog Golf Center building renovations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Town Board Resolution 2025-1419, co-sponsored by Councilwoman McNamara, to award and authorize the purchase of one 2025 Ford Expedition from Hempstead Lincoln Mercury Motors Corp., using the New York State OGS contract for vehicles Class 1 through 8 statewide.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1420, to declare items surplus and authorize the disposal of equipment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1421, recall and amend Town Board Resolution number 2023-479, authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement and award of Community Preservation Fund, CPF, 20% water quality improvement project funding the Board of Trustees of Commonalty of the Town of Southampton.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Town Board Resolution 2025-1422, to recall and rescind Town Board Resolution number 2025-1151, authorizing the supervisor to enter into a contract amendment with Haydock Engineering LLC for municipal engineering consulting services.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1423, to recall and rescind Town Board Resolution number 2025-1152, authorizing the supervisor to enter into an agreement with A. Martin Petrovic, Professor of Horticulture, to review the 2025 operation and environmental impact of the Bridge Golf Course.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Town Board Resolution 2025-1424, to recall and rescind Town Board Resolution number 2025-1153, authorizing the supervisor to enter into an agreement with WSP USA, formerly Leggett, Brashears, and Graham, Inc., in connection with the 2025 groundwater monitoring and sampling services for the Bridge Golf Course.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1425 to amend the 2025 budget for various departments.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Town Board Resolution 1426 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell. 2025 notice to proposers for 93 Butter Lane, Bridgehampton farming proposal.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 1427 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell. 2025 notice to proposers for 834 Town Line Road, Sagaponack farming proposal.
All in favor? Aye. Town Board Resolution 2025-1428 to authorize the town to reimburse New York Municipal Insurance Reciprocal, the deductible for liability and property damage claims.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 1429 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Pell. Resolution of adoption amending Town Code Chapter 312, Article 22, Section 312-97, speed limit on 3 roads, Big Fresh Pond Road, Lakeside Drive, and Parish Road in the Tuckahoe North Sea area.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 1430 of 2025, co-sponsored with council members Iacilli and Martell. Authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the East Quogue Fire Department Holiday on Main event on December 6, 2025, from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Town Board Resolution 1431 of 2025, authorized waiver of Parks and Recreation Facility use fee for the 2025 Run with the Torch in honor of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 1432 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Iacilli. Cost reimbursement waiver for St. Rosalie's Church Our Lady of Guadalupe Run on December 12, 2025, from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 1433 of 2025, co-sponsored with Councilman Iacilli. Cost reimbursement waiver for the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary Church Run with the Torch in honor of Our Lady of Guadalupe on December 12, 2025, from 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Same second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1434 to appoint Andrew Smith to Senior Park Attendant in the Parks Department.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Town Board Resolution 2025-1435 to appoint Christina Dunning to the Senior Office Assistant position in Land Management.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 2025-1437 to recall and amend Resolution 2025-1025, authorizing the sole assessor to attend the New York State Assessors Fall Conference.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Town Board Resolution 2025-1438, notice of public hearing to amend Chapter 123, Building and Construction, Article 2, Sections 123-10 and 123-11.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that's going to be held on Tuesday, December 9th at 1 p.m.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1439, notice of public hearing to demolish the old public safety building located at Jackson Avenue Complex in Hampton Bays.
Second.
All in favor?
Hope this goes through,
Oh,
because
get it done one of these
get it
days.
done. Now it's gonna fall down by itself.
Town Board Resolution 2025-1440, co-sponsored by council members Iacilli and Martell, to authorize the sale of a development right from the Community Housing Opportunity Development Right Bank.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then there's the two walk-ons. Town Board Resolution ID number 51621, the 2025 Standard Workday and Reporting Resolution for elected and appointed officials.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Town Board Resolution ID number 51647, which is the warrant number 22, capital number 22, CPF number 22, dated November 25th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, well, if no one has anything else they want to add, then I move to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
All right, thank you, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes,
Oh, yes, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.